This week's blog post is on innovators in sculpture and innovators in painting. I'm making a special pre-publication offer through June the 15th, that's Monday, 2020. You can have signed print copies of Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting with your name in the acknowledgments for $50, including shipping. To order, pay $50 via the Leave a Tip button on my Sunday recommendations page on DianeDuranteyWriter.com and send an email to DuranteDiane@gmail.com telling me the name that should be listed in the acknowledgments and your USPS shipping address. Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting will be available in print at $30 each and in Kindle format at $8 each. Each volume is 6 by 9 inches, and they have respectively 162 pages and 385 color illustrations, and 140 pages and 192 color illustrations. The books will be available for sale on Amazon on June the 17th, 2020. A quick word for those who know my work. I've made two very original contributions to art history. The first is my technique for looking at art closely, which I described in detail with examples in Getting More Enjoyment from Sculpture You Love and How to Analyze and Appreciate Paintings. The other contribution is using innovations as a framework for an overview of the history of Western art. That's set out in Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting, which I am now releasing after working on them for about 20 years. If you've enjoyed my work, then yes, you should certainly read these. Each of these is a standalone book, but they do complement each other. I would suggest reading Innovators in Sculpture first. It includes several discussions that aren't repeated in Innovators in Painting, for example, on recognizing innovators, on transmitting innovations, and your emotional reaction to a particular innovative work. Also, I really recommend print format for these two books. It's much easier to keep the relevant images in front of you. However, since I read almost everything on Kindle these days, I will offer a Kindle version. I do buy still print versions of books that I expect to refer to again and again, and I hope that you'll find these books to be of that sort. So, let me tell you what's in these books. How did artists progress from Egyptian sculptures to a work such as Frischmuth's The Vine, or from cave paintings to Leroll's The Organ Rehearsal? To find out, we focus on innovations that gave the artists who created them, and all artists who followed, greater power to make viewers stop, look, and think about their works. These two jargon-free books are a great introduction or refresher for anyone interested in art or art history. The broadest goal is to help you find more subjects, styles, and periods that intrigue you and appeal to you, that present the world the way you think it can and ought to be. Because what's the point of looking at art if not for moments like that? The time you spend reading Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting is a small investment for a possibly huge return, more art to love, more art that reflects your values and your sense of life. The ideal readers for Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting are intellectually curious and love to integrate knowledge. My readers admire individuals who use their minds to the utmost in whatever field of endeavor. More specific audiences include museum visitors who want a framework for the art they're seeing, teachers and students who want an overview before diving into details of specific periods or artists, sculptors, painters, and graphic artists who want a big picture view of the development of the expressive means available to them, and friends of art enthusiasts who want to share the excitement but need a foothold to get started. Why are these books unique? This is the introduction to art that you've been waiting for if you're curious about its history, but are daunted by 1,000-page art history tomes and 2-semester courses that cover the art of every civilization worldwide. Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting are unique because they're short enough to digest easily, and because they provide a framework, not only for looking at all periods of Western sculpture and painting, but for reading detailed works on whatever period or style catches your fancy. There are no other works like this for sculpture and painting, although I have seen them for disciplines such as geology and computer development. My main concerns in writing these books were brevity and clarity. Let me give you a few examples of what I did. For the sake of manageable length, the scope is limited to representational art in Western Europe and the United States. I would love to see this sort of study for the art of other cultures, but I'm not qualified to write it. Also, the focus is on major innovations rather than every development or style. In sculpture, there are only 11 such innovations. In painting, there are 29, which I've divided into 5 categories. Also, a summary of innovations appears in the middle of the book, after the Greeks and Romans, and at the end. Also, such terms as contrapposto and foreshortening are clearly defined. Also, a timeline lists innovations in sculpture and painting alongside major events in politics, science, literature, and philosophy, so you can integrate what you know. And finally, suggestions are given in the appendixes for further reading and for visiting museums, so that you can easily explore more of the art that interests you. A few testimonials. An earlier version of Innovators in Sculpture appeared on Medium.com in 2015. Here's what a few of the readers said about the series. The first is from an engineer. Your sculpture essays have expanded my range of enjoyment and helped me think more carefully about my reactions. This one's from a musician. I like the format. You ask the reader questions, I read it, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, somebody's talking to me. You totally nailed being down to earth and yet extremely perceptive. This is from a philosopher. That was a great analysis of this innovation in sculpture. Thank you. The way you compared and contrasted the detailed features was concise, clear, and illuminating. And finally, from a sculptor. This series offers a clear and straightforward approach to understanding art. Love the theme of innovation in art. Exemplar images help make key concepts meaningful, and the leading questions are clear and compelling. Reviewers of the Kindle version of Innovators in Sculpture called it concise, clear, and illuminating, friendly and accessible, and an excellent introduction to the great sculptures of Western civilization. A quick note on Ayn Rand's aesthetics. This book is not written primarily for objectivists, but if you're familiar with Ayn Rand's works, you'll recognize the discussion of what art is as a paraphrase of Ayn Rand's definition. Quote, art is a selective recreation of reality according to an artist's metaphysical valued judgments, end quote. The sections on how an artist works and on the purpose of art are also based on my understanding of Rand's work. The main writings on aesthetics by objectivists are listed in Appendix 3, further reading, in both Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting. And a final word on my writing on art and art history. I am a passionate amateur, not an academic. I write on art because I love looking at art, and thinking about art, and helping other people do the same. Innovators in Sculpture and Innovators in Painting are based on 40-odd years of looking at art and reading about art and art history. For more on the evolution of the two Innovators books, see the first appendix in each of them. As a result of my fascination with art, I've also written books such as Outdoor Monuments of Manhattan, Getting More Enjoyment from Sculpture You Love, and Seismic Shifts in Subject and Style, 19th Century French Painting and Philosophy. These and my other writings on sculpture and painting are listed in Appendix 3, further reading of both of the Innovators books. Thank you as always for listening. If you want to read more of my writing, there are hundreds of posts on DianeDurantewriter.com. You can join my free Sunday recommendations email list via the URL that's on screen, or just email me. And you can say, well done, Diane, or support my work on a recurring basis and receive rewards by means of the tip jar on DianeDurantewriter.com.